Hello and welcome to the GP Vahan Podcast. My name is Greg and I will be your host. But before we go on this journey together, let me tell you a little something about myself. I'm an artist storyteller. My genre is fantasy art, languages, mythology, hidden symbols, cultures, and riddles. The reason I started this podcast was because I wanted to have conversations with like-minded people who are interested in the same things I am. And one of the many things that fascinate me in this world is the subject of dreams. This is why I've asked my friend Kathleen Chavoor to come on the show and we can have a relaxed conversation about dreams. Kathleen is a PhD student in depth psychology and integrative feeling practices. Her work is rooted in the psychological perspectives of cultural symbology and mythology as a source of integrative, personal, collective, and national healing. So you can see why I asked her to come on. So without further ado, here's Kathleen. Hey, Kathleen.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Did I miss anything? I mean, that's a mouthful, Kathleen. Psychological perspectives of cultural symbology and mythology as a source of interactive.
That's too many words, isn't it?
But you know what? It's all important. It's all the things I want to know about and learn about. So
awesome.
That's why I was like, I got to have you on, and this is going to be an awesome subject to talk about. So,
yeah, let's get started. I'm ready.
All right. So what are you exactly? You're a psychologist?
So I'm a psychotherapist. In California, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Mm-hmm. That's a little misleading. I don't see couples. I don't see families. It's just my training allowed me to encompass all of those things. So I'm an LMFT and I am also a PhD student, I think, as you stated, in depth psychology.
Wow, that's a lot. So
it's a lot. Yeah, it's really fun.
So what got you on this path? What got you interested in psychology?
In psychology, well, it was the only major that I found interested in my undergrad, and I have a BA in psychology, and then I kind of moved forward in my master's degree. And in your master's degree, you become familiar with different theories of psychology. And I happened to find interest in Freud and Jung, who, as you know, are very interested in the unconscious and in dreams.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, it's Jung has always been an interesting character for me too, to read up on, especially the whole Red Book and all of that, and the story of Jung writing the Red Book and putting it in the vault for about 50 years. And
it was locked away for a long time.
Yeah, and just recently published in 2009, if I remember. One of that published 50 years after his death because of what's in the Red Book, which is very interesting. So as far as dreams, I mean, tell me, how did you get into that? What was the interest about dreams? Was there?
I've always been an avid dreamer since I was little. And, my grandfather actually told a story of how he followed his dream. He was in Jerusalem and he had a dream that led him out of Jerusalem and out of war, and eventually in the United States. So I have always had this kind of family connection to what's underneath the surface. And just through my family lineage, I paid attention to my own dreams as if maybe there was something or someone wanting to whisper something in my ear about parts of me that I didn't know. And when I landed in psychology, I was so happy to find out that there were actually theorists that held the reverence of dreams the same way my family did.
Wow. Okay. And we never touched on this, but you are half Armenian, half Assyrian.
Correct. Yes.
Right? Yes. That has a lot of history there.
There's a lot of history. Yes.
So is this the grandfather that's on the Armenian side or the Assyrian side?
Yes, this is my mother's father. So this is the Armenian grandfather.
Armenian side. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's pretty interesting. All right. So you also mentioned, I also read mythology. So is there a connection between dreams and mythology? Maybe there's
a mythology. Myths are like a narrative elaboration of archetypal images.
Yes.
So think of every dream that you have like your own personal mythology. with and in that personal mythology, there are connections to the collective mythology of humanity. I don't know if that answers your question. So
It does. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it does. Because I mean, the way I look at mythology, as you know, I deal with a lot of mythology. There's always a grain of truth in every myth, and it tells the
Yes.
story of that particular culture. So to learn about that culture, you can learn through their mythology, through their stories. Even though it might sound supernatural and just, out there, but it tells you about that culture, and you can learn from those myths.
Yeah, myth can be a snapshot of any given culture in a particular time.
Yeah.
But what's so fascinating about mythology is that they hold true and across time. There's almost like an ancient wisdom of patterned behavior that we can experience, not just in society, but within, I think, the psyche of each person.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, even with, let's say, Greek mythology and the oracle. Right there. That might be one of your favorite topics, right?
How did you know?
I don't know. I just guessed.
Oh, that's great.
But what can you tell us about that? Because there's a lot going on there.
There's a lot going on there. I had a really interesting dream once where I had heard just a voice that said, "Don't forget to ask the Pythia." And in my dream, I said, "How do you spell that?" and Psyche answered me, and I woke up and I Googled it. And that was my first interaction with the Oracle of Delphi.
Yeah.
But what I find actually in Greek mythology, I'm really interested in the current, well, it's not current, but the story of Gaia and Uranus.
Okay.
And in that mythology, I've kind of, with a colleague of mine, we're writing about how the American patriarchal complex found in society today has origins of that myth.
Interesting.
So there's a deep-seated connection with that story. I can go into
tell us the story?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
So the story goes that Gaia, who is known as the goddess of earth, the goddess of land, she could creatively birth on her own. She did not need a partner in order to birth children, but she took one of her sons, Uranus, as her lover and as her partner. And she was creatively birthing children after children after children. And eventually, Uranus became so angry at her power and so jealous of her power that he was prohibiting her from birthing these children. So he was shoving the children back into the cavernous of her body. Wow. And she became so enraged at this, that he was actually stopping her, that she convinced her son, Kronos, to take a sickle and castrate him.
Wow.
Okay. So through that lineage, Uranus became defeated and he was no longer in power anymore. But Kronos continued, married his sister. And when incest. Incest.
And it's not only in Greek mythology, it's also in Christian mythology. It's there's a whole thing there. So
there's a whole thing there. But Kronos started having children via his sister. He also felt threatened and started to consume them. So he was eating his own children, and thus the lineage of patriarchy, man or masculine, I would say, needing to be an omnipotent power, somewhere between fear of castration and fear of loss of power. Yes. So in the shadow side of the masculine, they prohibit women from creating birth, from existing creatively as they will. In order to stay in power, they prohibit women from existing at all, from being visible, from being seen. So that's one way mythology plays out in current societal existence today.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, even though it's natural for a woman to give birth. In a way, they're kind of going against nature, trying to stop that. And
Right.
yeah,
And in this myth, you could look at it as like the actual physical birth, but we're talking about psychological birth, coming
yes,
to consciousness.
yes, yeah,
So the masculine side, the shadow of the masculine, wants to prohibit consciousness,
yeah.
which is a patriarchal reverberation that we experience daily.
You're right. And the interesting thing about the whole Delphi thing is, and you don't only see this in Greek mythology, you also see it in native cultures, is
Mm.
whenever there's a connection to the spirit and somebody needs to talk to the spirits or the gods or what, it's always a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like the oracle is always a woman talking to the spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, in native cultures, if there's a shaman, the shaman has to dress up as a woman. Will put on a wig if they're going to do their incantations, invocation, or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
there's this connection that a woman is necessary to connect to the spirit world, which is
To the
pretty interesting. I've
numinous,
come to find.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To the numinous.
And
That's,
we,
I mean, that's modern day psychotherapy.
yeah, you're right.
The Oracle of Delphi is also like the Oracle of psychotherapy, that we act on behalf of
Yeah.
spirit or
Yeah.
soul in
Yeah.
order for others to understand themselves in a deeper way.
Yeah. And also, I think in the Greek culture, they actually had caves that people used to go in where they would take a certain substance and they would
Mhm.
fall into sleep. And I can't remember what the Greek god of dreams is, but his sickle we still use with the
Oh,
with the
really?
with the
Oh, right.
serpents. Remember?
Yes.
And on medicine, there's like a serpent on a rod. I can't
Yes.
remember what his name is, but they were also incorporating dreams back then. And they would, if they had a particular question that they needed an answer for, they would go into these caves and they would take some kind of a substance and fall asleep. And
Hmm.
then when they woke up, hopefully they would have the answer
Have the
to their
answer
dream. Yeah. So, which connects back to the dreams.
to the dreams.
Um,
Let's get back to
yeah,
dreams.
let's get back to dreams. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you want to talk about dreams? Is there like a pattern to dreams? I mean, some of these questions I'm going to ask you probably have no answers because
Okay.
I don't think we exactly know what dreams are, right? I mean, what can you tell us about dreams?
So dreams come from the well of the unconscious. Like if you think about your daily life, we're conscious of things. We get up, we go to work, we talk to our coworker. Dreams occur at both the personal unconscious level,
Mhm.
the cultural unconscious level, and the collective unconscious level. So there are things that we experience, emotions, feelings, ideas that have been maybe repressed or not permitted to become conscious. They are expressed in symbols in our dream state.
Mm, perfectly said. There you go. So that is dreams.
Those are dreams. Um, and dreams have been, like we kind of alluded to before, they have been part of the way that we connect to a numinous experience since humanity. In almost all major religions, there are stories about God talking
Mhm.
to people or characters through their dreams. So it's a way that we deeply, deeply connect to our higher self, to our true self, and to, I don't know, dare I say God, or a numinous experience,
The unknown or the
the
spirit.
unknown, higher power,
Yes, or the Akashic records, if you want to
or
go
the Akashic records.
there, if you believe in all of that.
Yes.
So it's I mean, I've always been fascinated with dreams. I try to listen to my dreams and learn from them if I can, but obviously it's not linear. You know what I mean? It's always all over the
No,
place. It's like a riddle. A dream is always like a riddle.
I
So,
love that you said that it's not linear.
mm,
I feel that, it's actually circular, that we kind of come across it and then enter back into it again over and over and over again. And that, I mean, that's a karmic experience. And I think that dreams can speak into that karmic experience as
yeah,
well.
definitely. I mean, connecting it to Jung, I think Jung looked at it. I mean, you're the Jung expert, not me,
Oh,
but I think the way he saw it was there's your outer self and then there's your inner self. So you have two
yes,
types of personalities, kind of a thing.
yes.
So the outer self is everything you do every day, with your family, going to school, blah blah blah, doing your job. And then your inner self is where dreams come into play, is you go on the inside and then
Mhm.
you try to figure out who you really are or
Right.
what you are really about.
Right.
And that's the
So
interesting part. Yeah.
I love that you said that, we have these masks, and I think this is what Jung was alluding to. We have an egoic ego presence, the persona that we want to present to the world.
Yeah.
And then deep inside of us, there are emotions, personalities, experiences that are intolerant to family or society or culture, that are still very much alive, that
Mm-hmm.
have been pushed deep, deep down into the shadow parts of our personality, the
Yeah.
shadow part of our unconscious, that get a chance to kind of play
Mm-hmm.
during our sleep state. And when we pay attention, when we listen and when we observe, and even when we amplify, when we open up the symbol of whatever comes up in our dream, we get a chance to know ourselves in
Mm-hmm.
deeper ways.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I guess that begs the question of who are you really? Like you said, a lot of people have been disconnected over the years,
Right.
disconnected from nature or whatever you want to say.
Right.
The mess that this world is in right now doesn't give you a chance to actually go within. It's
Right.
all
A
so.
lot of what is being demanded of us is external.
Mm-hmm.
And you asked the question, who are we really? Well, we need ego. We
Mm-hmm.
need an outer self. We also need our inner self.
Yeah.
And dreams kind of get to play on both. They present both what's unconscious and what is conscious as well. And
Yeah.
playing with that and opening it up, it connects us both to society, to our collective, to our family. It is not linear. You're
Yeah.
correct in that.
Mm. So does everybody dream?
Does everybody dream? Um, Most people enter into a REM state. Not
Okay.
everyone. People have
Okay.
weird sleep patterns, and we dream in a REM state.
Yeah.
Not everyone remembers their dreams. Not
Mm-hmm.
everyone has access readily with that part of themselves.
Yeah.
Does everyone dream? I'd have to look at science a little more
Yeah.
closely. I have patients that I see, that I have seen for years, and we never talk about dreams because it's just not available to them. We do
Interesting.
active imagination, we do other forms of like deeper knowing, but not everyone remembers their dreams.
So how do you tap into, do you do things like meditation to kind of go into your subconscious? Is there ways of doing that?
Yeah. I have a wonderful professor. Her name is Fanny Brewster. And when we are opening up a dream in class, we often share dreams. I'm in a PhD program, and she often helps us get into a very relaxed state. I wouldn't say it's hypnotic, but
Mhm.
it almost feels hypnotic. It is meditative. It kind of blurs the line between ego and deeper self. There's like a thin veil.
Mhm.
So when you're in a relaxed state, there's more of a chance that you can go into the deeper wells of yourself. So
Yeah.
meditation helps with that. Daily breathing helps with that. Whatever you can do to kind of uh, step away from the egoic, the ego kind of wall that we create to
Separate
ourselves.
yourself basically
Mhm.
and then go within. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, going back to Jung, his thing was digging a hole in the ground and then he
Mm,
would dig a hole and then go deep into that hole and
yes.
where that hole would lead him. Which always works with mythology too, connecting it to whenever the hero would go on a journey, he would either go deep into the woods,
Mhm.
somewhere dark, or into a cave.
Into a cave.
So, which is your inner self going deep,
Right.
and
Yes.
then yeah, it's again, which goes into mythology.
Right. It's
And
the descent. We have
yes,
to
the descent.
descend to
Mhm.
know. And what's so fascinating is that not only mythology, amplifies the descent into knowing, but you could look at Disney stories, you can look at fairy tales,
Yeah.
where there's usually the character goes deep or
Mhm.
goes dark,
Yeah.
or I'm thinking of Moana, where she have you watched Moana?
Yes. Oh yes.
Oh yeah, you have kids. You've seen Moana.
I watched it. Yeah.
Moana goes into this cave. She
Yeah.
goes deep into it, and she has to find the gold.
Yeah.
And this is patterned behavior.
Yeah.
This is an outline of what humans do in order to find that which is hidden to us.
And Joseph Campbell, one of my favorite people to read on.
Oh,
And yeah, I mean, the father of mythology. Maybe that's not
right.
right, but I feel like he is. He constantly talked about that. It's like, the hero's journey,
Mm-hmm.
and going into the cave and trying to discover himself or herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then, fighting the dragon, and the dragon also
Yes.
has its meaning too. Uh,
Yes.
and I always thought that was funny. There's always a dragon in the cave that's sitting on the gold, and like the dragon can't use the gold, can't spend
Right.
it, and is always in need of a virgin, but can't do anything with that either. So
Mm-hmm.
what does the dragon symbolize, really?
I think the dragon symbolizes the dark feminine.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about the dark feminine. I'm always going to relate it to Moana because that's like my favorite
Please.
mythology,
Yeah.
modern day mythology. Tefiti, the angry goddess of the earth,
Yeah.
is also the dark feminine. And we
Yeah.
need her. We know in modern religion, it's so much emphasis on the goddess, the good mother.
Mhm.
And the darkness has been kind of cast off.
Yeah.
But really, the dark and light, it exists in all of us, in the
Yeah.
male and the masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
So inviting that in can be quite scary.
Mhm. Well, I mean, in Hindu religion, you have that. You have the Kali, the goddess
Holly.
of destruction and creation. You can't
Mhm.
have one without the other. It's that
Can't have one
duality.
without the other.
Yeah,
Right.
and everybody has that. Yeah, and there's even in Egyptian mythology with Sekhmet, which was bloodthirsty,
Mhm.
and then once her thirst was quenched, then she transformed to not Bastet. I can't think of her name now. You see
Yeah, I
that
think
I'm
it will
freezing.
come later.
You guys can look it up, all right? But
Yes.
it goes all the way back to Egyptian mythology also.
And in Christian mythology as well, you have Eve and you have Lilith.
That's true. Yeah.
So the idea of both that exists within
Mhm.
has become kind of intolerated. But it's good to hold the tension of these opposites because, as Jungian psychology teaches us, when you hold the tension of opposites together, a third way is born. The
Yeah.
third way is born within us.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which I want to go into dreams and death.
Okay, dreams and
So,
death.
dreams and death. You know how you have these dreams when you're falling off a building or whatever, and you're just about to hit the ground, but you wake up.
Hmm.
So you don't really see yourself die in a dream. Is that because you don't know what's beyond death? So you have no visual of what death is, and that wakes you up? Or what is that?
Oftentimes, when there's a death in the dream or the death is implied without us actually experiencing the next, I guess, iteration of life after death, I guess every dreamer is different, but
Mhm.
death can symbolize what part of us needs to die so that the new thing can be born.
Interesting. Okay.
There are many death dreams, and again, it depends on the dreamer, depends on the person, it depends on the culture.
Mhm.
We have to in order to amplify the symbol of death, we have to know to whom death is speaking to.
Hmm. That's like in order to create something, something has to be destroyed to make
Yes.
room for creation.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
I was in my backyard the other day. It's sunny here in California right now, by the way.
I'm in Boston, so.
Ah, so I was looking at my rose bushes, and about once a week I go and I cut the roses and I put them in a vase. And every time I cut the rose or I deadhead the bush, there's new growth. So nature often reflects um, these symbols that are held within us, that
Yeah.
something has to die in
Mhm.
order for new growth to come. So it's
Yeah.
all interconnected, both
Yeah.
nature, mythology, dreams, humanity.
Yeah. And I think the older cultures understood this,
Yes.
and through mythology and through spiritual, whatever you want to say. Nowadays, there's this thing about death, and obviously you're scared of what you don't know, of the unknown,
Of course.
right?
Yes.
But in those older cultures, we're talking thousands of years, they kind of had an understanding through their shamans. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that there was a ritual of death. we've lost ritual, and mythology often points to ritual. Ritual is a way of expressing just the innate human need of understanding through acts, repetition, and death has ritual, just like birth has ritual. But our rituals have shifted over time, and so the meaning has shifted over time as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that's something to really sit down and think about.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah. So let's go back to Joseph Campbell.
Okay,
So what do
let's do
you
that.
when was the first time you actually, was it in school you found out about Joseph Campbell, or what was it?
Oh, when did I encounter Joseph Campbell for the first time? Actually, it was through my aunt who is in publishing.
Okay.
She had dinner with him and he and
Really?
his
Oh
wife.
wow. Okay.
Yes, and she said he was just so lovely and
Yeah.
wonderful and charismatic and
Yeah.
kind. When she told me this story, I was like, I don't know who that is. And it didn't matter to me as a teenager. But when I became interested in Jung and Freud and mythology, that he reading Hero of a Thousand Faces, his interview with, oh, what's that guy's name?
Bill Moyer.
Bill Moyer, I
Yep.
watched. It was
Yeah.
on Netflix for a while, I think.
PBS, I saw it.
PBS,
Yeah,
yeah,
when I
something.
was a kid. Yep.
But the school that I attend for my training, he donated his library
Oh wow.
to the
Okay.
school. Right. So you can go into the library, you can pull out a book and you can see his notes on the
Oh my
side.
God. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, totally geeked out.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
geeking out now. So
yeah. Um, so, the more time I spend in mythology, of course, the more time I spend with Joseph Campbell and Eric Neumann. I don't know if you've heard of
no,
Neumann.
no.
He wrote, let's see, I have it here, The Fear of the Feminine, The Great Mother. He also was, I believe that he was a student of Jung as
Okay.
well. So
Okay.
he's deep into mythology. He's
Okay.
someone that you should definitely look into for
I
further
will.
reading. Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew I was going to talk to you, and I wanted to kind of go back and listen to some Joseph Campbell
Mm,
podcasts, because
okay.
I often, when I'm doing art or something else, I just like listening to him because it centers me for some reason. One of the things he said about consciousness I thought was interesting was, we are the consciousness of the earth, meaning we are its eyes, ears, and voice. We were born from the earth and not brought over from the outside.
Mm,
So, which goes back to Mother Earth, right?
Gaia.
So, which connects you to be aware of your surroundings.
Mm,
It's there, everything you need, your mother, everything, earth, the
mhm.
earth is it. You're not separated from it.
No.
And nowadays, with the shoes that we wear, the cars we drive, we try to unhinge ourselves from the
Mhm.
earth and
Mhm.
see the earth as something separate.
Mhm.
Whereas at the end, you're probably going to go under it,
Right. We
Instead
go
of,
back from
yeah,
which we came from, and
exactly.
um we are a creation of and from the earth, and
Yeah.
we are all connected. And I'm talking about plants, animals, everything has
Everything.
consciousness,
Trees.
depending on, your theory of
Yeah.
consciousness, but
Yeah.
we're all connected instead of
Yeah.
separate. I think that a lot of religious theology teaches separateness and
Mhm.
dominion over earth and dominion over its
Yeah.
creatures, when really,
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, it's
Nobody's
it's all
judging, so please let it out.
it's all interconnected,
Yeah,
all of
you're
it.
right. Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. I mean, the pagan religions, they're looked down on, but most pagan religions had to do with the earth and
Mhm.
connecting with the earth.
Yes,
And they just put faces on them, and they, made them into gods or goddesses,
right,
like Gaia or whatever.
right. You just animate it. It's like you animated the idea of consciousness.
Yeah. As Armenians, the research that I've done in the past, because I'm kind of trying to get Armenian mythology going again, as you know.
Yes,
But
I
what
know.
I've come to find is Armenians were actually nature worshippers. Before there was Aramaz, then Anahid, and
Mhm.
all these gods and goddesses, the
Mhm.
hierarchy. Apparently, Armenians back in the day worshipped the water, the rocks, really Native American kind of. They believed there was a spirit in everything around them, and
Right.
the Most High was the sun. They worship the sun, and that's where
Mhm.
you have the Wheel of Eternity and
Yep.
all of that.
Mhm.
But as time goes on, these faces materialize, and you have the Father Creator, the Mother. But
Mhm.
what's interesting in Armenian mythology is even though Aramas is the creator of the world and Anahit is the daughter, Anahit is more fondly looked upon than Aramas, which I thought was interesting.
Yes.
You would think it's a patriarchal society, but
Yes.
back then they actually held her in high reverence, even I dare say above the creator God.
Right.
What does that say? That's
That
pretty
says that we've all been influenced by patriarchy,
yeah.
and it flipped the idea of connecting to the maternal on its head.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
You know,
So,
I think about, here's an unpopular opinion.
no, please share.
I think about, at least in the Armenian culture, Saint Gregory the Illuminator, who
Mhm.
came and desecrated the feminine.
Who is not Armenian, by the way.
Uh, right.
Yeah.
You know, tore down the temples, tore down the ritual, tore down the symbol of the feminine, and replaced it with this patriarchal society. How, to me, that is a cultural trauma that we live with, that
Yeah.
we continue to live with. Um, you think about intergenerational trauma. I think that the loss of the feminine is an intergenerational trauma. And what I've noticed, at least in my patients and in, my studies, is that there is a rebirth of the feminine that we're experiencing.
In what way? Can you explain more?
Oh, I'm in just observing people's dreams,
Mhm.
in my own dreams, in the cultural discourse. I mean, we're talking about the
Yeah.
feminine, we're talking about earth.
Yes. Yep.
5 years ago, would we? No,
No,
maybe
you're right.
not.
Yeah, you're right.
There is a shift, and something is shifting in our consciousness, I think, collectively. I
Yeah.
mean, you look at eco psychology, you look at global warming, it's all around us in some
Yeah.
capacity.
Yes.
And if we're not thinking about it, it might be coming through in our dreams.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I think in your studies, something to do with dreams and trauma and
Mm.
the genocide stuff. Can you talk about that a little bit? Is that something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. As an Armenian and a Syrian, we've experienced both collective and cultural trauma. And my job as a depth therapist, someone who pays attention to the unconscious and who can work with dreams, I've become curious about the ways in which that intergenerational trauma has played out collectively in our culture,
Mhm.
especially in our dreams,
Okay.
especially in the symbology, in the the way our dreams speak to us. What don't we know, and what is being withheld from us collectively in order for us to heal?
Yeah.
Because what we're doing to heal isn't necessarily working
Yeah,
at the
I agree
moment.
with you. Yeah, it's that thing of doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? I think
It's,
Einstein said that. The
what
mystery of
we call
insanity.
that,
Yeah.
is a repetition compulsion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is just like you said so eloquently, we continue to do the same thing expecting results, and it's not,
Hmm.
nothing's changing.
Yeah, you're right.
Um,
And through dreams and this trauma's trying to come out. And if people just had a way of, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. Like you said, there's meditation and all of that. I think if everybody started focusing on themselves more, like
mm,
looking inwards, the world innately by itself will change, right?
I would
There's
agree.
there's a lot of things out there. People are like, well, let me try to help this one, let me try to help that. Fix yourself first, and once you're fixed, then the
Mhm.
world automatically gets fixed. And
Right.
one way of doing that is looking within. And
Looking within
yep,
changes consciousness,
yep,
and it
yes,
both
yep,
affects the individual, it affects the family, it affects the culture, it affects
mhm,
society. Yeah. And I think, with especially, I've had dreams since I was a child about genocide. And my grandfather was a genocide survivor. But that information was withheld from me until I was about 30. So
Wow.
even without, verbal communication, my body knew that at some point my ancestors have been unsafe and that it affected me in not only genocidal dreams, but mythological dreams connected to our culture as well. I've dreamt of hike, but I didn't know it was hike until I opened up the myth.
That's
Like, oh, that
amazing.
is
Wow.
the giant that
Yeah. Yeah.
of the masculine,
Yeah.
Armenian masculine that I
Yeah.
live with every day.
Armenians are named after him.
Right.
Hayastan.
Ayastan,
Yeah,
here we go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I started the whole mythology and beyond thing, because I wanted to introduce more the feminine strength in mythology.
Yes.
Because I realized like all these stories like Zeus and Norse mythology or whatever, it's all male, male, male. Where are the females? They're
Right.
there if you look into it, but they're
Mhm.
kind of pushed back. And I said, well, let me look more into it. And I have to admit, even I was programmed to think of it in that way,
Of
like
course.
Hercules and Zeus and all these, and
Right.
women always came secondary.
Hmm.
But once you kind of got over that and you started erasing and starting over again, and you really read it, you
Hmm.
realize how powerful these women are.
Right.
And most of the time they're blamed for the pain that's out there, even though it was not caused by them. For
Right.
example, Pandora's box is a perfect story for that.
Mm.
Pandora was created by the gods Zeus and Athena, blah blah blah, and she was given this box and in a way forced to open it, and then at the end they blamed Pandora for it.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, she was made that way. She was made to take the fall. That's how I
Hmm.
saw that story.
Just like
Again,
Eve.
I mean, just like Eve,
Just like
exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting.
it
Um,
is interesting,
yeah.
and that I've always appreciated your story telling abilities of these myths. That's I think how I found you
Yeah,
actually.
you did. You emailed me.
I was I was nerding out on your
No,
version.
but out of all the emails I got, yours was the most fascinating. You
Oh,
told me about dreams and what mythology meant. I'm like, oh my God, here's a person that gets it. And I
yes.
emailed you right back, and I'm glad I did
Oh, I'm
because
so grateful
yeah,
too.
so
And your version of Akhtamar was really powerful because it was so deeply psychological. And
yeah,
these, mythology is psychological.
yes, for
And
sure.
the patterns of personality and psychology are deeply intertwined into the collective psyche.
Yeah.
And one way I look at mythology actually is not separate characters, but actually the characters that all live inside of us.
Hmm.
So, even in fairy tales, a lot of feminists, and caveat, I am a feminist, but a lot of
Same.
feminists get upset
Uh,
that it's like, oh, the man saved the woman by a kiss. Well,
yeah.
no, consciousness came when she was connecting with the masculine side.
Mm.
And until she was connected with the masculine side, she was asleep. She was dormant. Her consciousness was not available to her. So again, it's the tension of the opposites
Yeah.
existing together.
Yeah. I think, would you say that it's a mistake to think feminine, masculine, male, and female? Because
Mm.
because
That's
it's not
like
the
the
same.
anima animus.
Yeah,
Uh,
in a
uh,
way. Because I mean, a female could be also masculine, could
of
have masculine
course.
tendencies. So whenever people say masculine, oh, male. Whenever they say
Right.
feminine, oh, female. But that's the wrong way of thinking. Uh,
Well, what I really appreciate about Jung is that he helped. One of his conceptualizations was the anima animus figures,
mhm,
which is anima is the unconscious feminine psychological qualities in a
mhm,
man. So a
mhm,
man that has an anima is the feminine side of a man,
mhm,
and the animus is the unconscious masculine psychological qualities in a woman.
mhm.
So these characteristics come out all the time. So it's kind of like the symbol of the yin and the yang, where there's the
That's
dark
what
and
I was
the
thinking.
light.
Yes.
Same thing. We
Yeah.
all hold both
Yes.
masculine and feminine qualities inside of ourselves. And myth and dream is a fascinating way to understand those parts of yourselves.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, I can't say enough about dreams. I feel like sometimes even when I'm awake, I'm dreaming
Yes.
in a way. Because
Yeah.
for example, art for me, if I'm painting something or if I'm illustrating something, I go into a kind of a trance and
Mm.
I let something else take over. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I don't even realize what I'm doing until I'm done with it. And I look back and I go, oh, it's that thing of, you know how when you're writing and you hit that perfect
Yes.
balance and you let
Yeah.
go, and
Yeah.
that's where your subconscious or your, I don't know, inner self takes over and
Well,
something magical happens.
Jung would call that a daemon,
Yes,
Daemon.
not demon, Damon.
No,
Yes,
not
that
demon.
was
I
Jung.
mean,
Yep, yeah,
some people maybe
yeah,
demon,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the daemon.
Explain that.
Oh God,
I know
I'm
it's a
not.
long one. I know it's a Jungian concept.
It's a Jungian concept
Yeah,
for sure. I'm
yeah.
not equipped to share that right now, but I
Yeah,
can look it up.
no, no problem. I mean, there's a lot that Jung discovered that it would be a 15-20 hour podcast if we
Right.
talked about it. But
Yeah, even just reading his stuff is like, you
oh my
know,
God, it's so heavy.
very heady.
It's have
Very
you?
heady.
I'm sure you've seen the Red Book. You've looked into it.
Yes.
The
Hmm.
Seven Sermons to the Dead, I think, was the last chapter.
Yes.
What did you think of that book the first time
Oh, what did I think of that book?
you
Well,
saw
the
it?
first feeling that comes to my mind is overwhelmed.
Yes, yeah,
And um it's I have to admit when I open it up, I feel overwhelmed.
yeah,
Um, but it is a fascinating experience to see on paper where a human can go when they permit just almost a total takeover
yeah,
of something that is being born from within.
yeah, yeah. And he even, I think, wrote out warnings against that too. If you want to go in, it's great, but you have to
Yeah.
base yourself in a solid reality. Because
Yes.
if you might realize that going within feels so good that you want to stay there,
Right.
and then you might not want to go into reality again.
Right.
Uh,
It can be a form of dissociation at
yes,
times, but
yes,
sometimes we need to dissociate from reality.
yeah. Only if you know how to come back.
You have to come back, right? And dreams are a way of coming in and out
Yes,
of different
exactly.
realities.
Exactly. Perfectly said. Um, Are you still writing the paper on the whole trauma genocide, or because last time I spoke to
Yeah.
you, I think you were, and
So
where
some
are
of
you
my
with that?
research, what I have called participants to do is send Armenian participants who have lineage in the genocide,
Mhm.
send me dreams.
Mm,
Send me any dreams that you feel are particularly numinous or interesting to you, because I want to find if there are any archetypal similarities within our culture
mhm.
that are connected to the genocide or to trauma. Is that the research you're talking about?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially, this last iteration of the war.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of our, it's psychoactivating. It pricks us in very particular conscious and unconscious ways.
Mhm.
And we're all so deeply interconnected that I wondered what those images might be. I
Yeah.
remember there was an earthquake in Armenia in Yerevan maybe a year and a half ago, and I had a dream one night where I was in Armenia and there was a massive earthquake and the buildings were shaking. And I woke up kind of in a state of panic. And I looked at my phone and I went on, I think, Twitter, and it said there was just an earthquake
Wow.
in Armenia. So that kind of was the one of the catalysts of like, I'm so connected to this
Mm.
land that part psyche is anticipating trembling for me.
Wow.
Also, I noticed part of my research is in 20, I believe it was 2020, during Artsakh invasion,
Mhm.
people would come to me and just share, I had this dream, Armenians had this dream, and this happened. And there were similar themes
Wow.
from someone in Fresno to someone in Yerevan. And that was not alarming, but it showed the power of the unconscious.
Yeah.
And I really do think that there is a healing modality in connecting collectively to a social dream. If you think of individual dreams within our cultural collective, we might think of it as one dream of the collective psyche.
Yeah, perfectly said. Yeah.
So one mythology from my dream world to your dream world, we're all intertwined. What is this social connection here?
Yeah, I mean, Joseph Campbell said that, everybody, has myths in their culture and everybody's telling the same story. It's just
Right.
different faces, different names, but it's still the
Right.
same story. Because
Right.
you are on this planet. You're all living here. It's the human story.
This is
And
a human story.
yeah, and then going back to Hindu religion, I think it was Vishnu who dreamed existence, existence or reality came out of his dream.
No, I
So
didn't
he
know that.
dreamed us into existence. And when he wakes up from his dream, this existence will be over.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. So we are, in a way, somebody's dream. And that's why we're all
Right.
kind of connected,
We're all interconnected. And, I've read research where participant or people who were in, I don't know if it was a dream group, people in Philadelphia actually dreamt beforehand 9/11.
Really? Okay.
Mhm.
Wow.
And the
Okay.
same with Gyumri, people in Gyumri
Mhm.
who the day before the earthquake, there was an earthquake. I forgot what year was it, 90,
89, I think.
89?
89, if I'm not mistaken.
People dreamt ahead of time
Mm.
that an earthquake or something catastrophic was coming.
Mm.
So, we're like you, to pull it back, we're all connected to Earth, we're all connected to each other. Dreams are a way of highlighting that and
Yeah.
actually can anticipate what's next
Yeah.
and who
Yeah.
we are today, who we were in the past, and what's coming forward.
Yeah.
Kind of like fourth dimension stuff.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. If you're looking down, you've seen it. Or, as we mentioned, the Akashic Records, which has the stories of the past, the present, and the future.
There we
It's
go.
all written there.
It's
So
all there.
maybe tapping into that. A little
Yeah,
philosophy in there. There you go.
there you
So,
go.
but yeah, no, but I kind of have a problem with the Akashic Records is if that is true, the past, the present, and the future has been said already. Where does free will come in? So,
Right.
so that now you run into this conundrum or whatever you want to call it. So.
Sounds a little predestination-y, John Calvin, kind of not super into that look, but
No, I know.
there's something there, I'm sure.
Something there. Yeah, I
Definitely.
truly, yeah. But I truly, totally get your whole connection and the dreams and how we're all connected in mythology. I think you perfectly said it. And we can talk a little more about, I mean, I've gone within, but I've
Mhm.
always never gone really deep because of
Mhm.
maybe the darkness I might uncover, and that worries me
Mm.
because I don't know if you know, but I was born in Lebanon and grew up in the whole war and all of that. And I deal with that trauma or darkness through my paintings. So
Yes.
whenever I'm doing something, it tends to kind of come out on that.
Right.
And that's why I'm kind of hesitant to really go deep because I
Right.
don't know what is there.
You don't know
So
what's there.
yeah, and that's why I'm kind of taking it step by step as I go in deeper into what is or whatever.
Right. And it sounds like the paintings are, the catharsis of that trauma.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's the expression of the depth. And we can all pace ourselves. If it feels unsafe, you
Yeah.
can choose not to. And you can find ways to be rooted in your present body while holding on and going deeper.
Mhm.
People have all sorts of symbolic ways of like, they find a rock and they place it on the table in which they're painting as a reminder that, here's a rock, here's I'm present today. I am rooted, or there's lots of things that
Certain
people can do.
symbols and symbolisms
Symbols,
that they use,
yes.
yeah, or charms, yeah, yeah.
And actually that's why I really appreciate psychotherapy, is that there is a guide in some way, someone with you as you enter into the depths for 45 minutes a week or whatever it is,
Yeah.
um, so that they can help recenter, bring you back,
Yeah.
because it's an undertaking.
Yeah, it
It
is.
really is.
It's so in a way going into what you do, I guess you could say you're like the Virgil in Dante's Inferno.
No one has ever said that. I've been called a
There you
lot
go.
of
Is that the first time?
I've been called a lot of things, but not that.
Yeah.
I tell every new patient that psychotherapy is kind of like, you're in a dark forest and
Mhm.
you're trying to get out, and you've been walking in circles for years, decades, however long,
Mhm.
generations maybe even, and you can't get your way out of this forest.
Yeah.
And a therapist is someone that comes alongside you, doesn't know exactly how to get out,
Yeah.
but will walk alongside you as you figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's the best analogy I have besides Dante.
Yeah. That was a bad analogy.
No, that was great.
I like
I
yours.
like it better. But we all, some of us have spirit guides, some of us have ancestral guides, some of us have psychotherapists, some of
Yeah,
us
yeah,
have all of the above.
yeah, yeah. No, it's perfectly said. I love this, and I wish we can keep on talking about this a bit
Yeah,
more, but maybe for this episode, we should just end it.
we can.
Yeah.
I'm
So
happy to come back
yeah,
anytime.
definitely. Because I want to delve deeper and find
Mhm.
out more. So thank you so much for coming on, Kathleen. It's been a real pleasure. And oh, by the way, so how can people get in touch with you? How can they contact you if they want to help you with your
Yeah.
research? Is there like an email or
Oh,
something?
absolutely. Yeah. If I can give you my email,
Yeah,
I
please.
can
Yeah.
say it here, or
Say
I
it
can.
here, and then I'll put it
Okay.
down too. Yeah.
So it's kchav as in Victor, OOR, kchavoor @gmail.com. That's the
Perfect.
best way to reach me.
Perfect. They can reach you, and then they can tell you about, and this is specifically about Armenian or Syrian dream trauma
Yes.
connection. Yeah,
Yep.
that's perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. So this is it for this episode. Thank you all for listening. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, like and share the channel. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, please hit that follow button. It really helps us to reach more people. So until next time, I am GP Vahan. Be well, safe dreams.